Strange, but true stories. Tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. I'm Steve White. The Dogman Cometh. With apologies to playwright Eugene O'Neill for paraphrasing his famous play title, it does seem like there has been an uptick in sightings of this particular cryptid in the past decade or so. Since 2010, when the television series Monster Quest aired 2 episodes about searches for the mysterious Dogman, eyewitness reports of seeing this mysterious creature have increased exponentially, according to websites like the North American Dogman Project. Coincidence? Or did the focus hone the senses of more people to be on the lookout for the Dogman? Or did the interest in this creature turn people's imaginations up to 11? Allowing people to see something different than what was really there. Here are a few accounts of encounters with the Dogman. You decide on which part of the truth spectrum these land. Law enforcement officers are trained to be good observers. Notice, identify, and classify. An off-duty corrections officer in Wisconsin stepped out of his house to take the garbage to the bin, but as soon as he stepped into his backyard, the hair on his neck and arms raised, and his senses went on high alert. Not immediately sure what his senses were picking up, but then he heard a rustling sound off to his right around the corner of his house. A moment later, a creature walking on 2 legs moved into his sight. The creature paused, and the officer observed an animal with a long, wolf-like snout, ears standing up on its head, pointed like that of a wolf, and a large body. The creature ducked back around the corner, but kept its red eyes glaring in the man's direction. The officer heard rustling in front of him now. Swiveling his head to see what made that noise, he noticed a second creature, similar to the first. Long snout, pointed ears, and big. He swiveled his head again and picked out not just one more, but 3 more of these creatures. 5 wolf-like animals standing on 2 legs and moving into position to surround him, it appeared. The officer not only had training, but experience in high-risk, high-threat situations like this. And he certainly recognized this as a difficult situation that needed the right technique. Well, he had to do something, or he was going to be dinner. He focused, calmed himself as much as he could with a few deep breaths, and then took on an assertive and confident posture. He shouted, "Get out of here! You don't scare me!" The words came out with authority, just like he would to a misbehaving dog or an inmate. And it worked. All 5 of these creatures began to retreat slowly back into the trees and bushes surrounding his yard. And then he did the same, not turning his back to any of them until safely back inside his house. He closed the door, locked it, closed the blinds, all while feeling his heart thumping nearly out of his chest. This was just the first of numerous sightings for him over the next 10 years, but he said this was the closest encounter he ever had. Moving now to the deep south of Shreveport, Louisiana, 2 SWAT officers were doing some training exercises around the swamps of the area. One of the deputies saw movement off to his left, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Now, again, these are trained observers, and part of the exercise they were conducting was observation training. But still, seeing a creature that looks like a dog with fur, a long snout, pointed ears, standing straight up, and walking around on 2 legs, caused him to reconsider what he was seeing. He silently got the attention of his partner and pointed in the direction of the creature. His fellow officer's disbelieving look gave him the confirmation that he needed, that they were both looking at something very unfamiliar to them. This Dogman moved in their direction. The men were downwind from the creature, so it apparently hadn't picked up their scent just yet. But as it got closer and closer, it soon would. And then what? The men decided to descend to a creek bed and hopefully put some distance between them and the creature. But their movement alerted this cryptid, and its attention turned in their direction. They had been spotted and were now looking into the eyes of the Dogman. Not knowing what else to do, one of the officers pulled out his gun and fired a warning shot over the creature's head in hopes of scaring it off. It flinched, but didn't scurry off as intended. The men ducked quickly into some dense foliage to try to camouflage themselves. They noticed that instead of departing, peering through the leaves, they noticed another Dogman creature had appeared and had begun sniffing in the air in an apparent attempt to locate where the shot had come from. The second Dogman made its way to the first, and after a momentary meetup, the two creatures retreated into the tree line and moved on, leaving the men alone. The officers gave the creatures 5 minutes to put some distance between them before moving out of their cover and making an immediate beeline to their car, leaving the area as quickly as they could. They reported their encounter a short while later on the North American Dogman Project website. So that's just 2 accounts in the last decade since the Monster Quest episodes brought stories and the hunt for this creature to light. One of the lead researchers who was featured on those episodes is Linda Godfrey. In 1991, she was working as a journalist and had her first encounter with the cryptid known as the Dogman. While it seems like there may have been an explosion of reports in the last decade, Godfrey was able to track credible accounts back to 1936, with a story about the Dogman once again being seen in Wisconsin. She eventually turned her research into several books, including the 2019 release of I Know What I Saw, Modern-Day Encounters with Monsters of New Urban Legend and Ancient Lore. She has spoken with hundreds of people who claim to have seen the Dogman in her research. They are all adamant that what they saw is not a wolf. It is not Sasquatch. Instead, consistently, the reports are of a dog-like or wolf-like creature that stands on 2 legs and reaches a height of around 7 feet. They walk or run bipedally. These creatures are muscular and hairy with long arms ending with paws. They have a narrow waist and a bushy tail, long snouts with sharp teeth, pointed and tufted ears like those of a German shepherd. And then there are the glowing eyes. Sometimes described as red, and other sightings they have appeared to be yellowish. The majority of the accounts she has collected have taken place in wooded areas or marshes east of the Mississippi. A few years back, a husband and wife were looking for a camping spot for their full-sized pickup and camper for the night. As they drove slowly along a North Carolina coastal road after midnight, they heard a loud thunk at the rear of their camper. The man driving knew he wasn't going fast enough to have hit anything without him seeing it first, so he pulled off on the side of the road to check it out. He made his way to the back of his trailer, and he noticed a very large dent just below one of his taillights. And then something eerie happened. The chirping of crickets and other insects that he had heard as he stepped out of his truck stopped. At that point, he got the weird feeling of being watched. He had a handgun with him, and he unholstered it as he continued to look around the immediate area. There was a marsh off to his left, and he heard the sound of something moving around in the brush and grass on the marsh's edge. When his eyes finally focused in on the yellow, glowing eyes of the creature, he made out the distinctive features of a dog-like creature that was reminiscent of the German shepherds he had had as a kid. Only this one slowly went from standing on 4 legs to raising up to stand on 2. As it did, he heard 2 popping sounds, which he determined later were the animal's joints pop as it reared up. He then heard something off to his right and noticed what looked like a wolf baring its teeth and stalking on 4 legs. The first one had been holding his attention, while the second had moved into a flanking position. Now the first one bared its teeth and began to growl. The man raised the pistol and fired. A yelp from the first one gave him reason to believe that he had hit it. He believed it was a shoulder strike rather than a killing shot, but he didn't stand around for confirmation. The man ran and jumped back in the driver's side of the truck, slammed it into drive, and hit the accelerator. His shocked wife, who had been asleep when he pulled over to inspect the camper, was now wide awake and in shock at hearing the shot and her husband's rapid skedaddle down the road. He took a glance at his side mirrors and saw two more standing behind the first pair, and then he saw all four creatures drop to four legs and start chasing. He hit a not recommended speed at 40 miles per hour on the backcountry road with an Airstream in tow before he looked back again. He caught a glimpse of the pack slowing, and then another glance a few seconds later of the pack retreating back to the marsh. He kept the accelerator mashed until they made it to the nearest town in a well-lit parking lot to first catch their breath, then recount the story to each other, and finally fall into a fitful sleep for a few hours. Waking up the next morning, they put a lot more miles between them and the creatures they had seen hours earlier. However, this particular person decided to look more into these creatures and has now become a Dogman investigator himself. He has come across the creatures a few more times and shared his story of that particular night with the television series Terror in the Woods. So what do you think? Are you a Dogman believer now? You too could join the legion of what some call laptop researchers in the hunt for this strange cryptid. Heck, if serial murderers can be identified and brought to justice with some laptop vigilanteism, why not the Dogman or Sasquatch even? To look into these and other sightings and encounters, check out the folks who are putting feet on the ground in the hunt for the Dogman. Visit Jody Cook's North American Dogman Project at NorthAmericanDogmanProject.com. There's also Linda Godfrey's blog at lindagodfrey.com. And check out another YouTube channel dedicated to this creature called The Dogman Narratives. So if you're outside exploring nature in your local woods, or maybe you've taken a trip to the marshes and swamps of a particular area, and you feel the hair on your neck stand up with an overwhelming feeling of being watched, or worse, hunted, maybe use some of the knowledge gained from this video and then hightail it out of there. The Dogman may be hot on your heels. And then after your heart rate is slowed down again, be sure to tell us about it. This has been another Strange But True Stories. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And as always, we are looking for great new true stories to tell of encounters our viewers have had. Send us your story with plenty of details in an email to strangebutTrueStories2@gmail.com. Subscribe if you haven't already. Sign up for notifications so you know when the next video hits the channel. Thanks to all those who have. We appreciate the support. Be well, and take care of each other out there. Until next time, I'm Steve White.